figuring out how ITCO was going to be motivated and then deliver on this notion of providing superior, meaning better than we have been, IT services for less money. Now, the first thing that Steve Yates did, and in retrospect he says was the best thing that he did, was hired a CFO for ITCO, Harman Carswell. Now, interestingly enough, the CFO was the one who was given the task of figuring out how we can implement a chargeback system that bills USAA and its business units for their use of all information technology products and services in such a way that it motivates, again, both ITCO and its customers to become better producers and better consumers in terms of low cost, high quality of IT resources. Okay. Now, no one will take IT expenses seriously unless they see all the charges and have some control over their consumption of these services. What does that mean? That means help me understand what I am paying for. Help me understand how I can pay less if I order less. Help me understand why what I'm paying for costs this much, because if I'm not convinced of that, I'm just going to buy something that I think is better for less money from EDS or IBM Global Services. So, ITCO experienced more than a few slips along the way. I'm sorry, I said 4,700 IT workers earlier. I should have said 2,700. I misspoke. The company's 2,700 IT workers didn't exactly welcome the message that they needed to make major changes. See, basically what they thought was going on was an assessment by senior management that they didn't know how to do their jobs. And in one sense, that was true. Now, these people were technically competent. Okay, let's stop and think about that. These IT people were technically competent. But that wasn't good enough. Okay, these IT people were not business competent. And that, in fact, is what was sinking the company. And that, in fact, is what was causing such poor health and poor quality of IT services coming from ITCO. Now, let me repeat that. And I'm going to try and prove that statement to you over the course of the next hour or so. The primary reason that IT was delivering poor quality IT services was not that they weren't technically competent, because they were. The primary reason they were developing poor quality IT services was because they weren't business competent. If that seems counterintuitive to you, then that's the whole point of this lecture. We're going to try and convince you, persuade you, that that indeed is the characteristic of this problem, and its solution was to cause the IT managers to become competent business people. And in the process of doing that, two things happened. Number one, ITCO became a lot more business profitable, provided a lot more quality IT services for a lot lower cost. And number two, their customer satisfaction went way up. All because, not because the IT people got better at IT, but because the IT people got better at business. As Yates says here, we started off with a major handicap. We didn't have many managers who had ever run a business. Some of them had no interest in learning. There were a lot of people who liked the title manager, but as a manager here, you have to understand the business side, and that wasn't what they wanted to do. Some IT managers left USAA, others were transferred to technical positions. So let me illustrate exactly what we mean by this. Here's a picture of ITCO. Now, with 2,700 people in the company, I don't know the precise numbers, but we could assume something on the order of 500 of those were managers. Okay, and these managers fell into three categories. Okay, this category of managers said, I'm out of here. I'm not going to deal with this. This is Mickey Mouse. This is not what I consider my career to be. I'm a technical manager. I am not some business guy. Okay. This group of managers said the same thing, only they wanted to stay in the company. So they said, demote me. Make me a technical guy again. Don't make me be a manager anymore. And this group of managers said, okay, we'll learn. Well, just consider the implications of this model and the handicap that creates for the senior management of ITCO. You can imagine that the morale issues were tremendous, that the management control issues were daunting. And then the question is, okay, well, these guys are willing to learn. What are we going to teach them, and how are we going to teach them? Not a small problem. It's in my estimation, it's a problem of Herculean proportions that would have caused most of us to just fold the deck and quit. Some comments from the article. The challenge, they needed to build a business skills infrastructure among IT management. That meant provide training courses to IT managers in things like accounting, and things like business forecasting, and things like business reporting systems. In 1999, its first full year of chargeback, ITCO lost money. We missed our rates big time. No one understood our cost structure, and we sure didn't know how to forecast demand. What does that mean, those words? Nobody understood our cost structure, and we sure didn't know how to forecast demand. Basically, what that means is, in 1999, given the new chargeback system, which we'll visit in a minute and see how that worked, ITCO would have to put in a bid to one of its customer divisions in USAA. Maybe the customer says, we need a new database, a customer database system to track our customer accounts. And ITCO comes back with a bid and says, all right, that'll cost you $2 million. Well, when it says nobody understood our cost structure, ITCO really thought it would cost them $2 million to produce it. After all, the smoke cleared, maybe the hardware and the software development and part of the management overhead cost $2 million, but there was another $500,000 somewhere else in other overhead costs that weren't properly considered when the bid was created. So there was a lot of maturing that had to happen in the way of business understanding by ITCO's managers so that they could do a more accurate job of projecting their actual costs and then charge their customers accordingly so that they didn't lose money on their deals. The other issue here, they didn't know how to forecast demand, has to do with understanding what the customer's demand for new business is going to be. If you're optimistic, too optimistic in certain areas, then you're going to think more business is coming than it actually comes in. If you're not projecting adequate business growth in certain areas, then you're going to put IT systems in that are too small to handle the growth that's right around the corner. So those were the kinds of mistakes that they found themselves making in this first year. So we go back to what Steve Yates says here. He says we had a three-part solution. Part one